If a woman tells you she likes you but doesn't want a relationship, most men hear a mixed signal. It's not mixed. It's a message, and a brutally honest one disguised in soft language. You think you're close. You think you're almost there. But what if the real reason she hesitates has nothing to do with timing, healing, or not being ready, and everything to do with the role she's quietly placing you in? Men get trapped here for months because no one teaches them how to read the psychology underneath her words. And once you understand where you actually stand in her life, you'll know exactly what to do next and what to stop doing immediately. Point. When you're stuck in this kind of dynamic, it chips away at you in ways you don't admit out loud. You start feeling replaceable, unsure of your worth, and frustrated that someone who likes you can still keep you at arm's length. That confusion is exactly why this video exists, to help you understand what's really happening before you lose more time and confidence in a situation that gives nothing back. If this already resonates, make sure you like the video and subscribe, because what comes next will show you why this situation hits harder than a simple rejection and what it does to your internal center. When a woman tells you she likes you but isn't ready for a relationship, it doesn't land like a clean rejection. A clean rejection slams the door shut. It stings, but at least you know where you stand. This feels like standing in front of a door that's slightly open, just enough for hope to slip through. And hope is a powerful thing when you've been investing your time, your attention, your emotional energy. You start imagining possibilities. You replay conversations. You convince yourself there's something real here. So when she hesitates, when she steps back instead of stepping forward, it hits deeper than a simple no, because now you're suspended between two uncomfortable truths. She likes you enough to keep you close, but not enough to choose you. That space between almost and not quite is where most men lose themselves. The ambiguity creates a dopamine loop. She's warm one day, distant the next, and your brain starts chasing the next hit of closeness. The inconsistency pulls you in stronger than clarity ever could. It feels like progress without anything actually progressing. And slowly, without noticing, you start bending your standards. You tolerate mixed signals. You justify her indecision. You tell yourself to be patient. You shift from acting like a grounded man to reacting like someone afraid to lose whatever connection you still have. That's the moment your masculine center slips. Here's the truth. Women aren't ambiguous. Their behavior might be complex, but their desire is not. If she wants a relationship with you, you will know. If you're guessing, analyzing, decoding, trying to read between the lines, then the line has already been drawn. Now, it's time to understand why she's holding back in the first place and what that actually says about the dynamic between you. There's a reason this situation happens so often, and it has nothing to do with you being not enough as a human being. It has everything to do with the type of attraction you activate in her. A woman can genuinely like your personality, appreciate your kindness, enjoy your company, and still not feel that deeper pull that makes her want to commit. Men often confuse emotional compatibility with romantic polarity, but they're two very different forces. She might feel safe around you, but safety isn't the same as desire. Respect isn't the same as longing. Comfort isn't the same as connection. A common pattern emerges here. You show up consistently, generously, predictably. You're available. You respond fast. You make plans. You show her she matters. And none of that is wrong. But when it happens too early, before any real polarity forms, it slowly blurs you into the background. You become the steady presence she leans on, not the man she leans toward. This is how many men unintentionally slide into the comfort man role, the guy she trusts, but not the guy she fantasizes about. Without knowing it, you take away the tension that fuels attraction. You become familiar too soon. You give too much before she invests anything. And the moment the chase disappears, her desire flattens. Here's the truth most men avoid. If she has to think about whether she's attracted to you, she's not. Attraction isn't a committee meeting in her head. It's an instinct in her body. And instincts don't need time to craft a decision. This doesn't mean the story ends here. It simply means this is one possible reason and one of the most common. But it's not the only explanation. Some women pull back not because of you, but because of something that still owns them from the past. Sometimes the situation has nothing to do with your attractiveness or how you showed up. It has everything to do with what she's still carrying from her past. When a woman hasn't healed from a previous relationship, whether it ended suddenly, painfully, or without real closure, she doesn't have emotional space to build something new. She might like you, appreciate you, even feel drawn to you, but a part of her is still tied to what came before. And when the past still has a hold on her, the present becomes a place she only steps into halfway. Women in this state often date from a place of protection, not openness. Fear-based dating looks like connection mixed with hesitation. She lets you close enough to feel seen, but not close enough to matter. She enjoys the attention but avoids defining anything. She smiles when she's with you but pulls back when things get real. The inconsistency isn't about confusion. It's about guarding herself from repeating a hurt she never processed. This is where many men make a predictable mistake. They try to prove they're safer than the last guy. They overcompensate by being extra patient, extra available, extra accommodating. But the more you try to soothe wounds that aren't yours, the more you start looking like someone applying for a role instead of standing firm in your own value. Here's the truth. You cannot fix a wound you didn't create, and you shouldn't try. Her healing is her responsibility, not your audition. If she's emotionally unavailable, it's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of her timing. And understanding this matters because the next reason women hold back has nothing to do with emotional damage at all. It comes from the dynamics of how she uses the connection you provide without stepping into commitment herself. There's another possibility that often catches men off guard. She likes the connection, but not the commitment. A woman can enjoy talking to you for hours, sharing personal stories, laughing at your jokes, and still not see you as someone she wants a relationship with. Why? Because connection is easy, commitment isn't. And in today's dating world, a lot of women have learned to separate the two. For some, you become the person who fills emotional gaps, the late-night conversations, the supportive messages, the reassuring presence. You provide warmth without pressure, attention without expectations, stability without requiring her to invest anything in return. And when a man offers that level of emotional access freely, many women will take it without ever considering where it's heading. This is where men misread the situation most. You feel close to her, so you assume the closeness is mutual. You think the depth of your conversations means the relationship is deepening. You think consistency equals progress, but intimacy in words does not equal intimacy in intention. She may be connecting with you while leaving the door wide open for someone else. And here's the truth. If she sees you as her temporary emotional anchor, she will never feel urgency to define the relationship because she already gets the benefits without commitment. That doesn't make her manipulative. It makes her human. People gravitate toward what feels good and convenient, especially when no boundaries are in place. But this dynamic rarely moves forward because she's not imagining a future with you. She's simply enjoying the present version of you. And if you stay in that role long enough, she stops seeing you as a potential partner and starts seeing you as a comfortable constant. The next reason is even more difficult to accept, not because it's cruel, but because it forces you to confront where you truly stand in her life. One of the hardest truths a man has to face is this. Sometimes you're not her first choice. You're her safe choice. Not the man she's actively moving toward, but the one she keeps within reach just in case. And in the modern dating landscape, option management is real. People keep doors half open because letting them close feels risky. She may not be sure you're the man she wants, but she's sure she doesn't want to lose you either. This creates a dynamic where she gives you just enough to keep you invested, but not enough to move anything forward. She responds quickly to your messages but avoids making concrete plans. She flirts lightly but sidesteps deeper conversations about direction. She enjoys your presence but only on her terms. She's affectionate in moments, distant in others. It feels intentional because it often is not malicious but strategic. When someone isn't ready to choose, they'll try to keep every option comfortably nearby. And the reason you stay because the attention feels good. Because the possibility still feels alive. Because part of you believes that if you're patient enough, consistent enough, thoughtful enough, she'll eventually see your value. But here's the truth. If she was evaluating you as a partner, you wouldn't be stuck in a holding pattern. People don't put their yes on standby. If you're wondering whether she's keeping you warm, she likely is. Your uncertainty is the evidence. When someone chooses you, confusion doesn't exist. Action is clear. Intention is clear. Momentum is clear. This doesn't mean she's a bad person. It means you're allowing a dynamic that doesn't honor you. Recognizing the standby slot isn't about blaming her. It's about reclaiming your place in your own life. And now that the reasons are on the table, the question becomes, what do you actually do with this information? The first real step out of this dynamic isn't grand, emotional, or dramatic. It's clarity, not the kind you plead for, but the kind you create. Most men approach this conversation with the wrong energy. They try to negotiate the relationship, convince her of their value, or ask questions that expose their insecurity. That's not what this moment is for. You're not trying to change her mind. You're trying to understand where her mind actually is. The goal is simple. Reset the frame so both of you are looking at the same reality. That starts with choosing the right moment, a calm, neutral setting where the conversation doesn't feel like pressure or an ambush. You're not delivering an ultimatum. You're not interrogating her. You're stating your truth with steadiness. It sounds like this. You express what you want and how you see the connection without attaching desperation to the outcome. You're not asking, "What are we?" You're not asking how you should behave. You're telling her where you stand. You're clarifying what you're open to and what you're not willing to stay stuck in. Here's the truth. Clarity is attractive. Negotiation isn't. When you approach this with grounded confidence, you communicate that you're not waiting to be chosen. You're choosing the type of dynamic you're willing to participate in. You're giving her the opportunity to be honest because your steadiness makes honesty safe. And most importantly, you're not walking into this conversation hoping she changes her mind. You're walking in knowing that whatever she says will give you the information you need to decide your next move. It's less about getting her and more about reclaiming your sense of direction. Once you've made things clear with words, the next step is making things clear with action. And that begins with how you manage your energy around her. Once clarity has been established with words, clarity must follow in your actions. And this is where most men stumble. Not because they lack strength, but because they've been operating from fear without realizing it. Fear of losing her, fear of losing the connection, fear of her choosing someone else. So they try to hold everything together by giving more, doing more, proving more. But giving more in a dynamic that's already imbalanced doesn't create attraction. It creates dependency. It makes you the one doing all the emotional labor. And when someone senses you're willing to overextend yourself just to keep them close, they don't step forward. They lean back because now the dynamic is serving them, not you. Pulling back isn't about playing games. It's about recalibrating your center. You stop initiating every conversation. You stop rearranging your schedule for last-minute plans. You stop responding instantly out of habit, hoping it keeps the connection alive. You create space, not as punishment, but as a return to equilibrium. Healthy attraction requires two people investing, not one person compensating. The truth is simple. People don't value what they don't have to reach for. When you stop over-investing, you allow her to actually feel the distance and decide whether she's willing to close it. If she steps forward, you have direction. If she doesn't, you have clarity. And during this process, you hold your standards. You stay warm, but not over-available. You stay interested, but not dependent. You show through your behavior that your emotional well-being doesn't hinge on her uncertainty. Distance isn't punishment, it's clarity. Clarity about what she's willing to do, and clarity about who you become when you stop chasing someone who won't meet you where you stand. And now, with the emotional balance restored, the final step is the most important of all, the one that puts your life back in your hands. At some point, you have to recognize the limits of what any conversation or recalibration can achieve. You can influence the dynamic, but you cannot force a woman to want something she doesn't feel ready for. That's why the most powerful move isn't about her at all. It's about you shifting the center of gravity back to your own life. When you reach on your energy into your goals, your health, your discipline, your mission, something changes. Not just in how she sees you, but in how you see yourself. Direction creates gravity. When a man is locked into his purpose, he naturally becomes more compelling. Not because he's trying to impress anyone, but because that intensity shapes him into someone worth choosing. Women don't commit to potential. They commit to trajectory, to a man who is actively building his future rather than waiting to be validated in the present. And when you move with that kind of intention, you stop clinging to outcomes. You stop waiting for her to make up her mind. You stop seeing her hesitation as a verdict on your worth. Instead, you start seeing it for what it is: one moment with one person who may or may not align with where you're going. And here's the truth: attraction grows in the space where a man builds himself. When you expand your world, you create opportunities, connections, and experiences that don't hinge on a single woman's decision. Your confidence shifts from reactive to rooted. You become someone who chooses rather than someone who hopes. If she circles back when she sees your growth, it'll be on new terms, yours. And if she doesn't, you'll be too busy becoming the man you were meant to be to look back with regret. Because the future doesn't belong to the man who waits. It belongs to the man who moves. You've walked through every stage of this situation: the confusion, the mixed signals, the reasons that sit beneath her hesitation, and the steps you can take to reclaim your momentum. What began as a moment of uncertainty becomes a mirror, not just showing where she stands, but revealing where you need to stand. You started in a place where her ambiguity controlled the tempo. Now you understand the psychology behind it, the strategies to respond, and the truth of why this dynamic cuts deeper than a simple no. Because it isn't just about her not choosing you, it's about you choosing yourself again. If she doesn't want a relationship, it isn't a dead end, it's a reset, a chance to assess what you've accepted, what you've tolerated, and what you actually want moving forward. A rejection doesn't define your value, but the way you respond to it absolutely defines your direction. And when you handle this with clarity, with grounded confidence, with a focus on building instead of chasing, you rise above the uncertainty that once held you. So if this video helped you see the situation differently, if it gave you strategy, clarity, or even just the sense that you're not alone in this, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, share your experience, and pass this on to someone who needs it. Because the more you understand your own power, the less you'll ever feel trapped by someone else's indecision.